Hi, everybody. Welcome to the season finale review of WandaVision. I'm just gonna get into it, because we literally just got finished watching the episode. We're not even like 10 minutes removed from finishing the episode, so this is gonna be a lot of hot takes and just everything off the top of our head pouring out. I'm just gonna set the stage. I'm disappointed.
Are you?
I'm genuinely disappointed with the finale to this, and I don't know what to do with that. Like,
I can't say I disagree with you. Maybe it's because I had hyped it up in my head a little bit more, but it had its ups and downs, but it wasn't perfect across the board by any means.
yeah, that's because there was good and there was bad, but it's just when it ended, I wasn't satisfied, and that's what I was really looking for. Because I was looking for something that was going to like kind of I was expecting a little bit more, I guess, from the ending. Like, I was expecting something that was gonna leave people asking a lot of questions, and
Oh, I'm asking questions, but
I'm asking questions too, but not the right
Right.
ones. Like, so I don't know. I need a minute to process. So I'm gonna leave the floor open to you guys for any of your thoughts, because I'm just in a fog right now.
yeah.
I I, I want to say that I'm in the same boat, but I believe we talked about it off camera when we did the last episode about how this WandaVision is the first little bit of Marvel content we're getting, and I don't think by any means it was a bad episode or a bad finale for the show, but I think us, myself included, and everybody out there who has been on the hype and theory train of WandaVision this whole time may have overhyped it ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we've been so deprived of Marvel content. But there are some things in the episode that I thought were bad in general. But I think I think the reason I'm not satisfied with the episode isn't because of the material, but how much I have personally hyped this series to no end with all the constant theories and everything. And of course, Mailman wasn't the
Yeah.
one. But
He got a line though.
Time.
He got that line in though, and whenever he
Don't
said
shoot
"don't
the
shoot the
messenger."
messenger," and
when he said that, I was like, oh god, it's coming.
Yep.
But it turned out to be all fluff. But
yeah,
I mean, purely created by me. But but yeah, that's my take on the season finale. I liked at the end that they went for what we were kind of hoping for, not as much as we were hoping for, but they did dump some alternative timelines and storylines on us that they're going to follow in the future.
Yeah.
And we knew that coming into WandaVision that it was solely meant to kick off phase 2. So there was always going to be multiple storylines coming out of this. I still don't know how. I mean, I guess I kind of do from the ending credits how this is possibly going to tie into the new Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
But aside from that, there's no specific of how it is going to, and I think it's kind of what you touched on last week, that it's not going to be a bam in your face how it ties in, but it's now vague, which I think is for the better. They weren't spoon feeding it to us how it was going to tie in, but we do know that it's going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I did say last week that there was potential that it wasn't going to be so obvious, but I'm kind of disappointed that I was right. Like, I was kind of, because like when it happened, because in my head I was like, well, this is definitely something that Marvel could do. Like, they'll just have a tie a bow on it and then leave it, and then later, like when the movie actually comes out, you get your tie-in there, like in the first like 10 minutes or so of the movie. But I got to be honest, I was expecting, I don't know, I was just expecting more, and I think ultimately it is the downfall of this episode is the hype that everybody had, because like you couldn't go anywhere on the internet without seeing people like throwing out massive fan theory. And what's crazy is a lot of the fan theories that people came up with were like right throughout like the series. So it's kind of like it's the hot hands fallacy of like basketball, where like if a shooter is like hot all night, then you expect him to continue to like keep making shots. So it was kind of that with like all of these people were making these theories about like, you know, the like Monica's powers, and I can't even think straight about like stuff that people were like getting right out of WandaVision.
Agatha.
But Agatha, and there was another one that I was thinking of, but I can't think of it now because everything is blurry. but like everybody was making a lot, and like Monica's identity, even like being like Monica Rambeau, like people called that. I think that was the biggest one that I was surprised at that people actually got correct. So there was like all of this like theorizing, and a lot of it people were kind of like hitting right on the head. And then we were expecting some kind of like massive tie-in, and then when it didn't happen, it's like we only have ourselves to blame, but like it doesn't keep me from like not feeling disappointed.
Now, yes, we hyped this up to ourselves, but I will call Disney on this one. The way they handled Pietro was a cheap shot. 100% a cheap shot.
I hated it.
I couldn't believe it.
Ralph?
Ralph?
On one hand, we got to find out who Ralph was.
Yeah,
but-
that's fair.
No,
but-
I don't care.
I'm mad about it too, but at least there actually was a Ralph.
Yeah, so-
I'm kinda
so-
okay about that.
I was wanting Ralph to be Mephisto. Like, like the Scooby-Doo. I'm Mephisto.
Oh god.
Not X-Men Quicksilver.
Yeah, so
Did they have to give him the last name of Boner, too?
yeah.
It's like, that's just the biggest middle finger. Like, my gosh.
Yeah. So to quickly set the stage and the pace of the episode, we picked up the episode right where the last one left off, with Wanda and Agatha kind of like, having a showdown, and then the sword version of Vision shows up, and then we have a nice little reconciliation between Wanda's Vision and Wanda, and then kind of what I said about there being a showdown on like multiple fronts kind of did happen to an extent. Like Wanda and Agatha started fighting, the two Visions started fighting, and then leading into what is probably the most disappointing part of this entire episode is Monica can see like the fighting going on from a house that she is very loosely being held captive in. Like first off, the fact that she's just like in an attic, like a furnished attic, and like she can see out that window, and like the only thing that's like keeping her from like actually leaving is just the fact that like Quicksilver has powers, and he's able to like speed in front of the door. Like she wasn't like tied down, she wasn't encumbered in any way. She was like free to walk around the cabin, and like Pietro is just sitting there acting like an idiot, and then they tussle a little bit. It's not a fight like at all. She basically like pummels him, pulls off like this necklace that Agatha's using to control him, and then we find out that he's an actor named Ralph Boner. Like,
And he laughs at the name. Like,
yeah, he laughs at his own name. Like, what the?
But he did laugh at it while he was still
Yeah,
being controlled.
that's
But
fair.
and
but,
also
like,
from that scene, whenever Monica is like beating on the window and trying to like yell at Wanda, he says, "No one can hear you from in here." So it led me to believe that the house, because this was Agatha's house, because that's where they ran into each other. So it leads me to believe that this house is more than just a house. She got the rune set up below. So there's probably some kind of magical thing going on with it. Trust me, I'm not a fan of the scene either, but
yeah.
there are there are parts that they threw in there. It wasn't just she couldn't overpower Quicksilver or Pietro, whatever you call him.
Until she did.
Yeah, until
Ralph.
she
I'm
flipped
calling him
him.
Ralph from now on. He doesn't even
Yeah,
deserve
so
the
Ralph.
term Pietro.
So, but yeah, it's more than likely going to come back to bite Disney in the butt that they handled Quicksilver and Evan Peters this way. It's by no means, I mean, unless they do something with it in the future, which I don't see any way that they can save it. But who knows? It's poor taste by them to pull on the fans like that.
I mean,
But I mean,
Boner,
Disney isn't past doing this kind of stuff before, so
Ralph
I mean,
Boner, like
Unless, hear me out. This is going to be a straight long shot. I'm just trying to justify why they got Evan Peters to play. Okay, so Evan Peters Quicksilver. Sorry, I just flashed my tissue. Evan Peters Quicksilver.
yes.
He's on a secret mission.
Uh,
And Professor Xavier was like, dude, you can't, like, your code name is going to be...
no way that there is no way
get out of here.
that Charles Xavier, a
Fine.
gentleman, ever said to another human being, your code name is going to be Ralph Boner.
Fine, Beast.
No, it sounds more like that's the name that
Magneto?
Quicksilver came up for himself. I've got my tissue here too. So, but
Yeah,
it feels more like
fine.
like if this was a thing, you know, I can see like Xavier being like, "Well, you can't go by Pietro," and he'll be like, "Don't worry, I got a cool name that I can use." And then he's like, "Ralph Boner," and it's like, see, that's more of a name that like Pietro would come up for himself. At least like the X-Men, like Quicksilver would come up with that stupid name.
The
Sorry,
only thing,
my idea was flawed, but anyway. He's undercover or he's trying to escape, and we will see this in Doctor Strange whenever the multiverse comes out.
so the only way I can see Disney like doing something with this is like how we talked about, you know, people inside the Hex, like Monica getting powers, and that being like kind of like Westview being kind of like the birthplace for mutants. But the only bad thing about that is we're going to have a Quicksilver that's named Ralph Boner if that happens. So if Quicksilver does like come back to the, you know, MCU, just know that his name is Ralph Boner if it's played by Evan Peters. That's the only thing.
Like even
I'll
if
live
they
forever.
even if they do like a multiverse thing and like they pull in all of the X-Men from like the Fox movies, like you can't shake the fact that they called him Ralph Boner. Like you can't. It's impossible. It's such a dumb, stupid name. Like it's the lowest common denominator of comedy. Like I'm so upset by that because it was so cool that this was like the first little taste that we got. Like think back to a happier time when Evan Peters first showed up and we were all so excited because we're like, oh, this is like the first real crossover that we're getting since like the merger happened and they bought out the rights. Like this is so cool and the potential is ridiculous. And they took that potential and they rolled it into a tiny little ball and then they threw it on the ground and they stomped on it and then they looked at it and they called it Ralph Boner.
Bingo.
That's the thing is like if they want to move forward with, you know, bringing over, you know, the crossovers of bringing like the X-Men to this to the MCU, they have two options that they can do. It's either they bring the X-Men over and we don't get an Evan Peters Quicksilver, or two,
Sweet dreams are
or
not
two, we have an X-Men. we bring X-Men into the MCU, and we have a Quicksilver named Ralph Boner. Like those are the only two options Disney has moving forward, and that in itself is super disappointing.
It's so dumb.
And yeah, but where this is a season finale of this, review of this episode, let's look at some more stuff from this episode.
Yes, yes, thank
I
you.
want to talk
Another-
about Ralph Boner some more because I'm mad.
Another thing that I said, screw you, Disney, on whatever happened was at the start of Wanda's fight. It's nothing big. At the start of Wanda's fight with Agnes, when she hurls the car at her, and she goes and looks under the car, and the two boots were standing there. I was
Wizard
like,
of Oz
I was
reference.
like,
Why?
I was like, screw you, Disney, get out of here.
Like, going back to the options, two things happened there. Either A, she threw through the window and there was a pair of boots there, or two, Agatha slipped her boots off and left it under the car.
Or,
yeah,
What?
like,
or Agatha's truly like, hee hee, this is gonna be funny. Need my boots. Okay, guys, who was the secret cameo? No one.
I think it was Paul.
so-
I think it was Paul Bettany.
yeah, Chris is right
That
because I saw it.
was right.
Yeah, so his the cameo was the fact that the actual Vision is, at least the one that I guess he was referencing, is the fact that the actual Vision is like alive again.
So,
Which, I mean, that is
Which
Yeah.
big
I mean,
news in another.
yeah,
Which
but
one?
it's like
you should have just kept your
let's-
mouth shut at that point,
let-
you know?
Yeah.
Let's,
Like-
yeah. This is
Paul
this
Bettany.
by this by nature is chaotic as it is, but like we'll try and like soldier on through this. So as the episode, we'll get to that
Sorry.
point so we can talk about it. No, it's fine. Well, because that part comes along fairly quickly from where we're at now, so we'll just kind of like push on forward. So, the witches are fighting, and eventually Agatha kind of like pulls the hex off of everybody, and they kind of start overwhelming Wanda, like, like we have families, let us go, yada yada yada. And Wanda's like wrestling with all the voices both inside her head and outside her head. And then we kind of get to the point where Vision, she starts pulling the hex down, and Vision and the kids show up at like the same exact time, and it's kind of revealed to Wanda that like her family can only exist inside the hex, which we already kind of knew that because Vision stepped outside and started getting like torn apart, but we weren't 100% sure about the kids. But now like we know for sure that the kids can't survive outside the hex either. So Wanda stops pulling down the hex, and they kind of rally together as a family and kind of go into phase 2 of the combat, which as Wanda's pulling the hex down, the sword agents kind of swarm the town as well. So now we've got Sword is in there, Agatha's in there, Cataract or whatever you want to call him, the White Vision is there, and they all split up and start fighting each other. And the two Visions end up inside of like a library, and they're like throwing fisticuffs at each other. And the Sword Vision basically says like, my prime directive is to kill the Vision, which the next thing that I'm not so happy about with this episode, he says that like, my prime directive is to kill Vision, and the Vision that Wanda created basically says, well, technically I'm not the real Vision. And then they both kind of stop fighting each other, and then they're like, all right, let's explore this.
I request to elaborate.
And yeah, and so they're floating. It's funny that they're floating and they're like still circling each other like in air. Like I would have, like it would have been out of place, but I would have preferred if they were both like sitting in chairs, like gentlemen, like
with
like sipping tea, like with their like legs crossed, like contemplating what it means to be real or whatever. But like, so they basically have a conversation where they go through like a thought experiment of like a Theseus's boat, which if Theseus's boat was created by Theseus, and then as the years go by, the rot starts to set in, and then if you replace the rotted boards with new boards, by the time that the entire old ship has rotted and it's been replaced with new boards, is it still a Theseus's ship? So is it still the same ship even though you replace the parts? And they basically go back and forth with like this thought experiment of like, who is really real. So, and basically they come to the conclusion that one of them has the memories of Vision and the other has the body of Vision. So, in a sense, they both are real, and that kind of like breaks the sword version of Vision. And then the other Vision basically says, because of shenanigans and you're like a being beyond understanding, your memories aren't as easy to like wipe away as people think they are. So he unlocks all of the memories inside of this Vision so that he can remember everything that has happened since like Age of Ultron up until the point that like Thanos popped the mind gem out of him. And he basically comes to the conclusion, I am the real Vision. And then he takes off through the skylight, never to be seen again in this episode. That's it.
Going to find himself.
Shut up.
So I'm going to take a slightly different opinion on this one, Parker, because when it first started that scene, I was like, you've got to be kidding. This is how he's going to beat him. I thought for sure when it started, he was just going to be like, yeah, you're the real Vision. Then he was just going to like terminate himself or just shut down or something. So the longer it went on, I was like, okay, well, at least he didn't do that. They did drag it out a little bit, maybe a little too long, but in the end, I didn't mind it, except for the end when he just flew away. I was like, oh, okay.
I don't know. I just thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was weird that that's how they went about like solving the conflict between the two of them. That it's like they have a philosophical debate over what it means to be real, and then like I would have almost rather preferred they kept or they have their conversation. The sword Vision is like, no, I'm still gonna kill you, and then they tussle a little bit more, and then maybe that's when like Wanda's version of Vision kind of like forces the memories back instead of it being like a mutual like understanding. And then Vision, the real Vision, is suddenly like, oh my god, like you're right, this is who I really am. And there's more of a like revelation of self as opposed to a very like mediocre battle of the wits, and then he just like screws off, and that's the last we see of him.
Like, I was fully expecting him to kind of be like, oh, well, I need to step up, like, my wife is out there.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, and he completely, it's like he remembers that he's the real Vision, and instead of going out and helping Wanda, he just leaves, like...
Because we know that he remembers Wanda because one of the flashback memories was him and Wanda kissing. So we know... I'm just mad. I am mad. Okay, getting a little ahead of myself. I'm mad that Wanda has never had a happy ending.
Yeah, I mean...
She's had to say goodbye to Vision 3 times. Right? 3 times?
Yeah.
We did get that nice. We did get that nice line at the end about that, though.
I'm all like a baby.
He's like, Ken, we said goodbye before, and she's like, it means we'll probably say hello again. And I was like, gosh dang, Disney.
Like, God, why are you doing this to me, Disney? It's not fair. Like,
yeah. But back to the scene with them figuring out who the true Vision is. I could leave it or take it as a scene. I wanted more. I wanted them to like do a freaking Saiyan fusion dance and then turn into one Vision at some point or something. But like,
sorry,
I get it. I can understand why he flew away, because he may not be accepting those like memories right away, kind of thing. He may fly away and has to like deal with him getting all these memories back, and then also being a robot at the same time, and everything. So he's like, that Vision has to like get a grip on what he is, so he flew away. Whatever. That's how I took it. Am I excited about that being it? Not really. But
it's like you can come up with a rationality, but it doesn't make you any happier.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah. So I'm not happy about it, but like I can see the rationale behind it. But God,
all right.
What else happened?
I want to talk about a couple of positive things here.
Yeah.
One.
Okay.
I really, really like what Wanda did to Agatha at the end. Instead of killing her or
God,
anything,
I was
Yeah.
that
so
was
hyped.
I was like, yes, that was
Yeah.
a baller move.
So
Well, how she
That means
even took
Agatha's coming
down
back.
yes,
how she even took down Wanda, or how she even took down Agatha,
yes,
like in their fight. I was so
Yeah.
hyped at that point in this episode because she kept like, so to recap, they go back to, like, Wanda takes her back to takes Agatha back to her past where she's at the stake, and then they end up flipping it, and Wanda ends up on the stake, and that's when the first time we see her get her crown from the Scarlet Witch, or whatever you want to call that. And then they come back and they have this fight in the air, and basically it seems like Wanda's giving up her powers to Agatha just to, like, be rid of it. And while they're floating in the air, there's storm clouds everywhere. She's hurling fireball magic things at Agatha, and she's like missing every other, like, a couple of them, and they're hitting off the wall of the hex. And the whole time I was like, she's got to be missing for a reason. Like, I don't know of any time when Wanda's actually missed her enemy throughout the MCU.
right.
And then, as it looks like Wanda has, like, been drained of all of her power, she all of a sudden, all of her, like, skin tones start coming back, and Agatha tries to launch a spell and she can't because Wanda has put up these huge runes
Yeah.
on the sides of the hex, and I was so hyped up to see that. And it goes back to Agatha in her past memories saying that, like, it comes down to knowledge is why Wanda won't win against her. And she's like, well, I don't know, thanks for the lesson about the runes. I'll just place runes all over my world.
Yeah.
And so that's how she, beats Agatha. And two things from that scene: it was badass how she did that, and the Scarlet Witch's new get up
oh
is
yeah,
just
that was-
like, mwah. Yeah, exactly. Like, it makes me so excited. That's one thing coming out of this episode is I am so excited to see where Wanda goes from here.
dude. When Agatha told her that she was stronger than the Sorcerer Supreme, I'm like, whoa, we haven't seen nothing yet. Then
She needs no coven. She needs no coven.
yeah,
But
Too good.
she's too
Too strong.
good.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
like,
Yes, Queen. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I think we've all known how powerful Wanda is from just hearing from the comics, how powerful she is in there. But this is the first time in the MCU that we have a scale for her powers.
Yeah.
Like, the first time it has been addressed. She's going to be going by Scarlet Witch, and we know she surpasses Doctor Strange by probably a phenomenal amount.
Yeah. And I mean, and kind of like what you said, to having that, like, that measuring stick, like, you not only just like Doctor Strange, but the Ancient One in the Doctor Strange movie. Like, we saw how powerful she was in not only that movie, but also in she had a cameo in Infinity War, or in Endgame.
Mhm.
Sorry. And so, like, so we have two examples of Sorcerer Supremes, both with, like, this massive amount of power. Like, we saw Stephen Strange, like, do everything from lock a demon in an infinite loop and holding back like 3 different, like, natural disasters while everybody else is, like, fighting in the battlefield, like, during Endgame. Like, we've seen him do incredible things which almost seemed effortless.
Mhm.
Like, he's holding, like, I always think back to, like, he's holding back, like, basically a whole ocean, and he has enough time to, like, look at Tony Stark and just be like, "What timeline, buddy? Like, get it right." It's like, the dude's amazing. And then to know that Wanda's, like, her powers at their peak are going to, like, surpass him. It's like Doctor Strange. Even though it didn't, like, there wasn't that, like, beat you over the head connection, but, like, knowing that Wanda's gonna be in the next Doctor Strange movie and having them both in the same movie is going to be don't screw it up,
How,
Disney.
how does she like how's the Sorcerer Supreme gonna feel about the Scarlet Witch standing next to him in a movie? Like,
Yeah,
I can't wait to see when he like fully sees her power and like acknowledges her, just like how shocked he's gonna be.
Yeah.
There better be a bunch of quippy one-liners from Wong because I miss Wong and I need something happy in my life now after this episode.
And I'll go ahead with another thing I really, really liked. That ending, the editing, just the music, the feels with Wanda and Vision putting the boys to bed for the last time, and then having a moment and you just keep seeing the walls closing in. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
That's a ways away, isn't it? Yep.
So to basically recap, because we're jumping around a little bit, but basically, Wanda and Agatha keep fighting each other. Wanda puts a hex on her, which gets her into like her memories, like Chris talked about. And then once they kind of exit that, Wanda's just like chucking her magic at Agatha. And Agatha basically tells her, like, I told you that if you gave me your powers, I would, like, fix the flaws in your spells. But the truth is, once you cast a spell, there's no going back to it. And that's kind of when Wanda's like, funny you should mention that because I've just cast runes all across the world and you don't have authority here anymore. And then the fight basically comes to an end. We see Wanda go full on Scarlet Witch. She, like, unlocks the power that is inside. And we get the first look at her Scarlet Witch. I don't want to call it like a costume, but like
attire.
Her attire. There you go. Like, because it's so cool. Like, it exceeds all expectations of like what I was expecting them to do with her outfit, and it is awesome. Like,
they even like curled her hair like coming out of it, and it gave it like.
I was getting some
it's real floofy coming out of it. I love it. Like it's so good.
I was getting some real like Jean Grey Phoenix vibes from it after with the costume and everything. I don't know. It just kind of instantly made me think of
that imagery though too, because like all of the magic was like pouring into her, and then like suddenly it just kind of like explodes out, and there she is, like in all of her glory, and and it was really. Yeah, it was very cool. And, they went back with that, like the imagery they used in last week's episode when Wanda, like, was exposed to the mind gem, like kind of her descending from, like, the light behind her, so a lot of really cool imagery with there. And then that's when we see that Wanda basically sentences Agatha to live in Westview still as, like, her character, basically. And Agatha kind of says to her, like, you don't realize what you've done by, like, unlocking your true powers, and you're going to need me someday. And then Wanda's just kind of like, well, then I know where to find you. And then she just turns her back into good old neighbor Agnes. And I thought that was really funny.
What's a shaking, bacon?
She has so many funny lines, like something like right and red. Did I leave the oven on, or is that just you, hot stuff? Like, it's so good. Like, all of her lines are so funny.
Such a baller move.
I think that with Wanda keeping Agnes, I know I'm going to be a dead horse, but I really think that we are going to see a mentor relationship between Wanda and Agnes, or Agatha, or however you want to call her at this point. Whenever we get to the end, I will reiterate it, but I think that she will become too powerful or not know how to handle her powers 100%, because we see the two Wandas, like Wanda and then Scarlet Witch.
And
of course we're gonna get to that because I want to know what you guys think. But I think that she'll need, or she'll want that seeking, because Agatha's the only witch that she knows at this point.
Yeah, because it's hard to say what her real like, even though they shared a battlefield together, we really don't know what her like relationship with Stephen Strange looks like. Like, if she has even met him, you know, at like Tony Stark's funeral, that he go up to her and be like, "Hey, I noticed that you're also magic. I'm magic too." Like,
Yeah,
you
but,
know,
like-
Blue
so
pops up and pulls out a card, and he's like, "I'm also
you
magic."
say magic, and then here comes Ant-Man's like puking cards up, like, and then they're just like, "Guys, we're at a funeral." It's like, "Oh, right, sorry, we forgot."
When Jimmy Woo comes out with his like business card.
Just magic all over the place.
I actually just thought of my own little theory about Agatha, and we'll talk about
Yeah,
it when we talk
well,
about that end scene
Yeah,
because it ties into that. But
yeah. Well, I think that's really the most interesting thing to talk about.
Yes.
So, like, I'm gonna power through the rest of the episode really quick. We kind of glossed over some of the littler things that happened throughout the episode. Like, Monica and the boys had like a nice little scene where they were kind of flexing their powers a little bit on the military.
I don't know what Monica's powers are. Like,
Yeah, we really don't. Like,
It was
but
a full extent.
she can sense energy, but then can she make her body energy because she like
Yeah.
absorbed all those bullets. One freaking Hayward trying to execute 2 children in the middle of a city square.
yeah,
Like,
that guy sucks.
he
How
should
is he
have
not
got
Ultron?
he should have got a lot. He should have got a lot more than Darcy slamming into his vehicle with her
Yeah.
funnel cake truck.
Yeah, so basically the boys are using their powers. Monica's using her power. Well, the boys use their powers first to kind of like disarm all of the sword soldiers that showed up, and then Hayward steps out and tries to just cap both of these kids, which is like, come on, man. Like, we have a lady who killed a puppy, and like, you're worse than her. Like, I mean, let's just be honest. So he tries to kill the twins. Monica takes the bullets quite literally, and like Chris said, she does some kind of weird, like, her body turns into, it's weird, her body almost phases like Vision phases, but it wasn't like completely transparent because we kind of saw the bullets, like, it was almost like they were going through water. Like, they started to like drop off, and then like one of them got past her, but like Billy was able to like catch it with his magic, and you know, we got a nice little taste of you know, but both of the kids kind of coming into their own. Billy especially, because like he really hadn't used his powers a whole lot until this point, so it was really cool to see him slinging some magic around. And then Hayward was, you know, I pulled the coward's move and hopped in his Humvee and tried to get away, and then completely forgot about poor Darcy. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And then Darcy slams into him with the funnel cake truck and gives a nice little like one-liner, like "have fun in jail" or something like that. And another thing that bums me out, that's her only scene in this episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So like Darcy just shows up to like, it's, the more I think about it, I'll save my opinions. We'll get through this, but
I mean, what was
like,
Darcy gonna do though? I mean, this was.
but
this
it's
was-
not what she can do. It's just her presence. Like, you know, I'll get into it.
Okay.
But she slammed into him, you know, was like, haha, got you, idiot. And then so that was kind of like all the side stuff that was going on while Vision was finding himself and while Wanda was fighting Agatha. So then, you know, everything gets kind of resolved. You know, Agatha is now Agnes forever until Wanda deems otherwise. So Vision and Wanda kind of have this moment where they're both like, we know what comes next, and they have a nice little walk home as a family, and they put the boys to bed, and they have a very emotional kind of like goodbye, and they go downstairs, and Wanda and Vision kind of have a moment between the two of them where Vision just basically says his goodbyes, but wants to know, like, what am I really? You know, like, when you made me, what am I? And she basically said, like, you know, you were a collection of my memories, my pain, but most importantly, my love. And that, like, God, that'll break your heart right there. Because it's a very beautiful, sweet moment between the two of them. And then Wanda pulls the hex down. Thank God we didn't see the boys like go away, because it was hard enough to watch Vision say goodbye to her. I thought the best thing that they could have done was what they did with literally putting the boys to bed and saying goodnight, and Wanda literally like she said thank you for choosing me to be your mom. And
God,
I was like,
that part. I was about to say
Oh my
that
God.
part broke me.
I need to call
What she
my
said.
mom, if you're watching this, I love you. Like it was rough, man. Like it was
when
really
she
rough.
said that, when she said thank you for or letting me be your mom,
Yeah.
it brought back all of the stuff like that Wanda has had to go through, and
Yeah.
just like it brought back everything from the last episode that we saw her go through. Just came back in that ending scene. Pretty, it all came back, and she said that. I was like, man, she's at it again. She's just taking the like.
Yep.
Like Julia said, Wanda can never get a happy ending, it seems.
No.
And then whenever she was talking to the boys, and whenever she's like families forever, like
Mhm.
Ugh.
oh, so it gives me hope.
Gosh, dang it.
Yeah, yeah.
That
Yeah.
and the hope of, once again, the after credit scene that we're going to
Yeah.
get into.
Oh,
Yeah, we need to
Yeah.
get to
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
because so basically the hex goes down. Wanda is standing kind of in the foundation of the home that Vision bought for her, and she walks back into the town square where like all of the sword agents and all of the townspeople are standing, and they're all giving Wanda like the look, knowing what she did to them. And her and Monica kind of have a little talk where Monica basically says like, they'll never understand what you gave up to like save them essentially. But Wanda says, it doesn't matter. Like I'll always be the bad guy to them for what I did. And Monica tries to kind of be like a friend to her and say like, listen, if I had your power, the first thing I would do is bring my family back too. Like, I don't want to say it's like absolving her of what she did, but kind of like the understanding, like, listen, you were grieving, you were in pain, and you didn't understand like the power that you really had until it just kind of manifested itself. Like it's hard to blame Wanda, because at the beginning we were like, like clearly Wanda knows what she's doing, but then we find out later she doesn't actually. Like
at least not
she
the
had
extent.
no clue. Yeah, like she didn't know that just how powerful she really was. And it's not like she did it on purpose. It was just like all the compounding grief just all at once like exploded into like the hex forming. Because like Agatha even said, like she doesn't need to do incantations or like any of that kind of stuff. She can just like use her magic at will. And when you have that capability to just do that, it's hard not to imagine that it's tied to your emotions in like some way. So Monica tries to kind of, give her the pep talk and be like, you're gonna be all right, and and Wanda kind of promises her like I have this power and I'm gonna learn how to use it. And then Wanda evades the police, which is a crime, so she's a fugitive. So she just kind of absconded off, and then that's where the core episode kind of ends with Wanda leaving town. She kind of like hovers outside the Westview like town sign, kind of gives it one last look back, and then she flies off, and then we get our credits roll. And then at this point I wasn't feeling too hyped, and then there are two kind of after credits stingers. So the first one we'll go through really quickly because honestly I don't care about it.
No.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, when I thought this was the only one, I was really mad. So basically, the FBI comes into Westview and they're kind of like debriefing everybody. Monica and Jimmy meet back up. They say something snarky about Darcy
Where's
not being there
Darcy?
because Darcy's like debriefs her for the week, and it's like,
I just want to see her.
like, yeah, I just want her to be around. Like she was like a main character in the show, like, but we'll give her like literally like 5 seconds of screen time in the series finale. Like, but whatever. So they're talking, and then another some random agent. She doesn't appear to be FBI. We don't know if she's sword. We don't know what she is, but she's got a badge. And then she says to Monica, like, hey, they want to talk to you in the theater. And then she goes into the theater, and then, oh, look, it's a scroll. And she's like, I'm I know a friend of your. What does she even say? I don't even care.
Like,
She's referencing Nick
your
Fury.
yeah.
I'm a friend of your friend's mom or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't care either. But
Yeah.
basically, it's the scroll saying, "Hey, Nick Fury sent me. He wants to talk to you." And then she's like, they don't say that, but it's who they're talking about. And then Monica's like, "Where?" And then she points up at the sky because we all know that Nick Fury's like floating around on a spaceship with all the scrolls. And so that's where Monica's path is going to take her. How and in what way, God only knows.
Not gonna
But
lie, I'm not that interested anyway.
I'm not at all. Like, I'll be honest, I don't care. Like, it's
The only thing I'm hopeful for out of that is that, you know, she meets Nick Fury, she harnesses her powers, and then in some capacity she shows up Captain Marvel. That's what I'm waiting for, is just for Captain Marvel to get her one-uppings by Monica Rambeau.
Yeah.
Oh my
And just
God,
be
yeah.
like, I'm better than you, and I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, one can only assume that that's where we'll see Monica next, is going to be in the Captain Marvel sequel, you know. So we'll get that. And I hope she kicks the crap out of Cap. I don't know what ultimately her beef is with Captain Marvel, but I know what my beef is with Captain Marvel, so I'm Team Monica like all the way.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, I don't want to give Captain Marvel too much talking time on this podcast, so we're gonna move on. So yeah, that stinger sucked. Nobody cared about it. And then we got the second
good one.
and yeah, now the one that really mattered. So this stinger kind of reminded me of the end credit scene of the Incredible Hulk,
Oh.
because like
yeah.
in that one it's like you know, Edward Norton's Bruce Banner is like just hanging out in the wilderness, like away from society, to kind of like hone his powers. And that's essentially what we get here with Wanda. So we get like a hard shot of like a beautiful, what I would assume is, it kind of reminds me of like Alaska. You know, like big mountains, evergreen trees, snow, beautiful lakeside cabin. And it kind of zooms in and we see Wanda kind of like sitting on her front porch, sipping some coffee probably. And for a moment there, I was like, oh, she's getting her, you know,
A little bit of R&R from all that.
Yeah, like she's finding some peace and like, you know, whatever. And then she walks back inside the cabin, and then the camera very ominously goes past Wanda into the back bedroom, where we see yet another Wanda, full Scarlet Witch, who is flipping through Agatha's book that she talked about very briefly in the episode. So Agatha earlier in the episode, basically to kind of like fill in like what the Scarlet Witch is, pulls out that book that we saw in her underground domicile, and then kind of talks about the Scarlet Witch and how she'll bring like ruin to the world and whatever. And so we see that Wanda has absconded with that book at some point, and she is now flipping through that book and learning ultimately how to control her powers. But the ominous thing is we can hear like the voices of her kids calling out to her, and then that is like our official hard stop of the episode. So I think the one thing that, you know, it's like, I feel like there's a lot of points in this episode where it's like they probably wanted you to ask questions, but you don't. But let's be honest, we don't care, because like honestly at this point I'm upset that like Vision didn't go help Wanda, but I don't care where he went. You know, screw him. You know, like that was super annoying. And the stinger with Monica, don't care about that either. Like, you know, and then we have this, and it's like, all right, now we're getting into something interesting, because I'm sure that all four of us have our own thoughts on how this is going to play out. So I'm going to let somebody else start, because I know I've got my opinions, but I'm going to hold on to them. So, Julia, why don't you go first? No, Chris, Julia's going.
This might be a surprise, but I actually don't have a working theory as of right now.
Well, that's disappointing. Chris, go.
Whoa.
Yeah, finally, I'm gonna take my shit.
Hey, Chris, go.
But First, in the book is, I went back and just looked it up, is called The Dark Hold, is what Agatha called it.
Was it? I thought she called it the Book of the Damned.
That's
Well, I mean, it's
what she-
probably.
Probably slang.
Okay.
It's
It was like the
AKA
same
Book of the
sentence.
Damned.
And she said the dark hold, and then like Wanda was like, "What?" And she's like, "The Book of the Damned," and then Wanda's like,
Yeah.
"I don't know what that is." Like,
But
Urban Dictionary it.
yeah, so when we see that there's two Wandas, and I can only assume that Wanda, in this brief period of time, has learned to do something that we've only seen Doctor Strange do, and that is go into the astral plane.
Mm.
So so she's and her, like, how she's sitting there reading the book is very like thrown to the whole scene of Doctor Strange and Infinity War, going through all of the sequences of reality or whatever to find the correct one. So it's a good throw to that. But
not to mention, just to interject real quick, Stephen Strange does the same thing in the Doctor Strange movie when he's like astral projecting to like read through all the material and stuff like that. So it's really a really strong callback to that if that's what they're going for.
Yeah, so in this short period of time, we now see. I don't know if Wanda could already access the astral plane. We haven't seen anything that hard shows that she could.
Yeah.
At the time, but now we're definitely saying that she is just astral planing, studying like Stephen Strange in Doctor Strange, and so she's already getting more powerful. By the time she gets to Doctor Strange 2, she's going to be a monster.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be scary. And the only thing that worries me about that is the enemy that they're going to have to like face in the Doctor Strange 2 movie is probably going to be on the same level, if not more powerful than Scarlet Witch.
Yep.
Which is like, I don't know my comic book lore enough to tell you who has that kind of power.
The devil.
But I mean, Mephisto, maybe.
Ralph.
Stop. We're on the good things right now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, so and I said I had a theory earlier about Agnes, and it's not much of one, but we hear Billy's voice and maybe the other ones. I don't remember those two voices or just one, or if it was just Billy's. But we hear his voice come through like the void while she's in the astral plane, kind of thing. So it means that the children got pulled into another plane of existence or a different multiverse as the hex went down, or something pulled them into another multiverse. So it can mean that the children are still existent. That's what it does mean.
Yeah.
It means that they are still existing somewhere, who knows where, we don't know. But from their voices there, we know they do exist.
Yeah.
My theory comes back to like however she goes about getting them back. I think the one time we will see Agnes in the future, or Agatha, is if she gets Billy back, and then she has Agnes train Billy to use his powers. She knows where to find him. I don't think there's going to be anything that I don't think we're going to pop back to Westview for a while.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
But I could see it being like a little caveat at like the end of like Doctor Strange 2, if she gets like Billy and Tommy back, that she drops off Billy to like be taught by Agatha. Because I mean, Agatha doesn't have any powers anymore, so I mean, there's nothing she can really do to Billy.
Yeah.
But she still has all that knowledge. She still knows how to do all the witchcraft stuff. She just doesn't have powers anymore.
Right.
Yeah, my theory was probably a little bit more out there. I like the idea that she was like astral projecting in order to, like speed up the learning process, I guess. But at first, I was kind of thrown by there being two Wandas in the cabin, because I didn't even stop to think about the fact that the magic users can astral project. But the more I sat and thought about it, like my out there like far-fetched theory was that, maybe there are two Wandas. Maybe one Wanda is from a different multiverse, for whatever reason. I mean, there's nothing to base that on whatsoever, but other than the fact that we know that the Doctor Strange movie is going to take place in the multiverse, and if Wanda is like hopping multiverses to either try and find like Billy and Tommy, and like she's just kind of using herself and these other multiverses as like an anchor or something, you know to me, the Billy and Tommy theory, I don't think that her Billy and Tommy are real anymore. Like, I think they were as real as the hex allowed them to be. I don't think that they're out in the multiverse somewhere because of some kind of shenanigans, but I do think that there is a version of them somewhere out there that maybe Wanda's looking for. Like, it's hard to say what she's found by like flipping through that book, and it seems like to me the best way to tie it in to the Doctor Strange movie would be that she is literally trying to like jump between like existences to try and find a version of her kids that she can like basically take and raise as her own. That's kind of my working theory right now, with her hearing Billy and like Tommy like crying out to her, through the void or whatever. That to me seems like there's one of these timelines. Maybe her and Vision are both dead, and like just the kids remain, and maybe she's trying to find that timeline and grab those kids and save them so that she has her family back in some capacity. I don't know. This is a really weird kind of like end credit scene, because it doesn't give you a whole lot. It gives you like, you see Wanda, you think everything's fine, and then suddenly, no, she's like full Scarlet Witched out, like trying to, what I assume is find her kids. And there's not a whole lot to really get, because I'm looking at the image of her in the back of the cabin, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure when Doctor Strange was like astral projecting, his like astral form was kind of like transparent, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could kind of like see through him, and this Wanda, like neither one of those Wandas are like transparent. Like, they're both, and like maybe it's an oversight, who knows, but neither one of them are transparent, so it leads me to believe that they're both real, and maybe Wanda can duplicate herself. But then the question becomes, why would she like make why would she make a copy of herself to walk around a cabin in the middle of nowhere, like, drinking coffee and staring out at the beautiful Alaskan wilderness, while the other one's like in the back, like performing the dark arts? Like, I just, the two Wandas confuse me, and like the only thing that I can think of is just really ridiculous idea of that they're both Wandas just from different multiverses.
I kind of thought of it as like whenever she awakens Scarlet Witch, it's her, but not really. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm still trying to like wrestle with this.
Yeah.
With this working theory, because we see the like Scarlet Witch in the cabin, like doing like all this stuff, but then we see who we know as Wanda walking around. So my working theory is that the one that we see with the book is actually Scarlet Witch, which like that somehow she was able to separate the two.
You think it's kind of like a Bruce Banner Hulk dynamic, like kind of like that.
But she's actually able to separate them. But then again, like, one couldn't survive without the other.
Yeah,
type of deal.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. It's still a working theory. It's not like there's nothing to base it off of.
Yeah, it's really this. Out of all of Marvel's end credit scenes, this one's like, at least with the Monica one, we were able to pretty like easily discern like where it was going, and it's like this one. It's almost after dealing with the whole episode and like feeling disappointed, like with this stinger, it almost like upsets me, because it's like I don't have a clear, like I feel like maybe their intention was, like, oh, we want you to think. It's like, yeah, but like maybe you were a little too vague with this one. You know,
Mhm.
like it's definitely the more interesting of the two, and it's probably the most interesting thing, you know, like theory wise to come out of this finale. But I don't know. I feel like this episode is just like really got me like in a funk.
Mm.
Like it's hard for me
Yeah.
to be excited about anything just because I'm kind of disappointed overall with how it all played out. Like,
Oh my
I'm
god.
sure. I'm sure I'll get better once I get on TikTok and start hearing all the theories that people have came
yeah,
up with,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
I'll get
yeah.
back to being like, oh yeah, this actually, it actually does make sense that they would do that. But yeah, see, the way I saw the end scene was that she was just because she told, Monica before she ran off that she was going. She's like, I don't know what this power is, but I'm gonna like study and learn how to use it, kind of mentality. And because Wanda's never known how to control her powers. Well, not control, but like
fully
how,
understand them.
yeah, fully understand them and utilize them and everything. So she's like, and she's seen she sees what she did in Westview, being like, I did this all by accident. I can't let this happen again. So she's buckling down on. She's like, I'm going to hone my powers.
Yeah.
And so she goes to this cabin to get a little bit of R&R and or what we think, and then goes to the back room and she's studying. And she hears those voices. I think she hears the voices, and she thought before this that Billy and Tommy are gone, but then she hears these voices, and now she's going to go. I think she's going to go on a search for them, whether they're the same Billy and Tommy or just from a different multiverse that she hears cry out. But I think she's going to go on a search for them, which leads her to exploring multiverses, and I think it's going to tie back into her not knowing what she's really messing with, and she's going to go from breaching multiverses, and Doctor Strange is going to pop in and be like, do you understand what you're doing? You may be more powerful than me, but do you understand like what you are doing, kind of thing. And he's going to mansplain it to her, and then we're going to
All right, calm down.
So
guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So, we've seen this storyline before. Can we go back to season 1 of Stranger Things with Joyce trying to find Will, and Will's in the Upside Down? And
So-
that's that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like
Yes.
it's like Wanda's
Yeah.
Joyce, like, where's my child, Will?
she's gonna be putting up Christmas lights all over the cabin.
Tommy, where's my baby?
Will.
So, so when I was watching it, my first instinct was, you just went through all of this and you decide to open the Book of the Damned and start reading it. That was my first reaction. I'm like, what?
Gotta
But
start somewhere.
then as this podcast has went on, I've got a working theory, and my theory is a lot darker. I'm on board with Julie and Chris, where Billy and Tommy are out there still. So I think it's much worse than that, though. So when the hex came down, we didn't see Billy and Tommy disappear.
Fair.
So we know Vision was constructed, and we know the boys were constructed within the hex. Okay, well, Vision argument could be made, but he doesn't really have a soul. He's a little bit different than Billy and Tommy. So Wanda created 2 living beings, not just recreated some wires with memories, They were very, very different. And I think there's consequences to creating life, and I'm thinking that when the hex came down, they didn't get destroyed like Vision. I think maybe they got pulled into a certain place somewhere in the multiverse because they didn't have a home anymore. But they were alive. She created them. And I think that's why she flipped out so much. She's reading the Book of the Damned, and here's her 2 boys. And I think
they
that's
basically gave birth.
right.
Yeah, because Monica even said early in the season, like she told Hayward, like, no, those kids are real, and that's something that we've kind of been struggling with this whole like season, because like Monica tells them, no, she gave birth to those kids, they are real kids, and we know that she's able to like manipulate reality because she has rewritten. I mean, she basically, inadvertently reread Monica's DNA to the point where she now has like superpowers. So we know that the potential for them to be like real is there. It's also weird that in this episode we saw when the hex was going down, all three of them, the boys and Vision, were all getting torn apart. Because
That's
then
true.
it's like,
That's true.
well, what is it? Like, are they real or aren't they real? Because, you know, it seems like the running theory was that no, they're tied to the world just like Vision is. But then it's like, do we just discount the fact that Monica said like that these kids are like flesh and blood, like real children? Like, you know, so it's it's hard to try and figure out just what's the truth here. Like, you know, are they real or aren't they real? And maybe that's the ultimate takeaway from the show so far is, are those kids real? And if they are real, are they tumbling through the multiverse somewhere, or are they not real? And are the voices that she's hearing are just like the voices of her potential children across multiple timelines? And because she's starting to like really dig into what her powers are and the capabilities and, you know, the knowledge that's in the Darkhold, like, is it all just kind of compacting together, which will end in ultimately yet another tragedy in Wanda's very sad life?
They better give Tommy and Billy to Wanda at the end of Doctor Strange 2 or whatever. Like,
I
she
will be
needs a
saying-
happy ending, Disney. You hear that?
Seriously.
Like,
Good lord, like, give the girl a break. I mean, I think she deserves it, for crying out loud.
She
Like,
deserves something.
I do like Josh's theory that they're real in a sense of, you know, their bodies were made up of hex magic, but their souls were real, and that could be what Monica was leaning into, that they were real.
yeah.
And I mean, it's very vague of how she said they are real. So yeah, I like the theory that their bodies may have been manifested, but they're Wanda created souls.
Right. She created life. Yep.
Gosh. It's been a roller coaster, people.
It has.
Yeah.
A lot of highs, one very significant low. But
Yeah.
We
Overall, though,
No.
I'm rating WandaVision gets a solid A in my book. I won't give it an A plus because of the
Yeah.
season finale, but I'll give it an A.
But
Overall, as a series,
but also we don't see, like, we're still in the very fresh moment of it. We don't see where this
Yeah.
finale is going to take us. So I'm hopeful that, like, you know, I'm really hopeful that they know what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
obviously, Marvel hasn't steered us wrong. I mean, am I a fan of the season finale as a standalone? But but as it connecting to the future phases, shows, movies, I'm hopeful that we're gonna see it and be like, oh, that makes so much sense. Duh.
Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna. I'm gonna need some time to process. I'm gonna need.
You're gonna
a
have to
day or
rewatch it
two.
at least one more time too.
Yeah, I'm gonna. When I start seeing like others' reactions to it, it's gonna be really like. I'm afraid that if I start seeing people like, oh, this was the best season finale ever, I'm gonna get upset, and I'm gonna be like,
Yeah.
don't be an apologist. Like, it's okay to be disappointed. You know, like, it was a good show. Like, overall, I'm in agreement with Chris. I think I have to give it an A minus though. Like, I have to give it that little like thing.
That little
Where-
dot.
Yeah, there has to be like the asterisk that's like, it was good, but you kind of fumbled a little in the end there. You know, like, it's a solid 90 out of 100. You know, maybe an 89.99 repeating, but yeah, I don't know. Overall, I'm glad that the show came out, and it was a much needed injection of Marvel into our lives after being so deprived for so long. And we're gonna have a week off, and then the week after that, we get Bucky and the Winter Soldier, so that'll be exciting. We haven't talked about doing a review series of that. We might hold off on review series for a while. The regularly scheduled content of us talking about whatever the heck we want to talk about has kind of been overshadowed with the need to finish this gosh dang show. But so, all right. Josh, Julia, give some final thoughts. Chris and I gave it a grade. What do you guys feel?
I'm gonna have to give it an A- as well because I can't give it any higher than that in the world that Quicksilver is Roger Boner. I just can't. Ralph, sorry, not Roger. Ralph Boner. So
I put some respect on his name.
Yeah, his name is Ralph Boner.
Mr. Boner, I'm sorry. I did not mean to offend, but whoever okayed that decision, you need a little bit more quality control. Review those scripts a little bit more before okaying them.
Yeah, your whole audience isn't teenage boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I swear.
The Zoomers out there are probably loving that his name is Ralph Boner.
Ugh, I hate it. So garbage. All right, Julia.
I want to give it an upper A, not an A plus, kind of like in the balance, just because there was a lot more highs than lows. There was probably like 2 flaws that I wasn't a fan of, but I don't think it was there by accident. I don't think that this is the end of Ralph Boner.
Ugh.
I hope it is.
Yeah.
No, because like I'm being optimistic and I'm being hopeful. I can't see Disney making that decision on purpose. I really can't. So I'm being hopeful. And I know it might bite me in the butt, but I'm being hopeful.
I love your optimism. I love it.
Thank you. I am being hopeful just because he is a Quicksilver. He is Quicksilver in X-Men. So I can kind of look over that, like, okay, well, we need some kind of disappointment. Like, we need to be like, well, that's it? Like, and, okay, Parker, stop looking at me. Like, stop making that face. Thank you. So I'm going to give it a solid A. I really like the series. I would recommend it to everybody. I can't wait to see what they do. Maybe I am optimistic about everything. But my final take. Okay, Parker, you may turn back around, but do not criticize how I feel.
Okay, I won't. They printed off a headshot that said Ralph Boner. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.